We have so much to discuss.
So much.
Did you see the
The
funny?
Israelis.
No, thank you. Did you see the Macron thing out in the streets of New York too?
No.
It's-
What? Well, we have a lot of people, so let's just intro ourselves. Hi, everybody. Elise Labott of Cosmopolitics and Dany Pletka of What the Hell is Going On? I know you guys ask yourself that question every day. We
Every
ask
minute of every
ourselves this
day.
question every minute of every day. Thanks for joining us. I know some friends from the Jim Acosta show are coming over. So Dany and I usually do this on Thursday, Hot Takes Happy Hour, but given everything that's going on at the United Nations, we thought, why not do a special UNGA edition?
Oh, unga. Yeah,
Unga.
it gets less and less consequential every year, actually. I think I remember, and I'm sure you do too, when it really was sort of a big deal that everybody hung on everybody's words that we had whatever it was. I watched Trump on C-SPAN, but that all of
Keep
the
talking. I
leaders.
just need to turn need to turn the Wi-Fi up.
You
Keep talking.
how does one turn the Wi-Fi up? Do let me
Well,
know.
I guess I need to turn it on.
Oh yes, I know
I'm
exactly
at
what the problem
Costa.
is.
I'm at Costa, whatever
Yeah,
you call it.
that. Hey,
Yeah.
Shana
Yeah.
Tova to you
Sorry.
too, Henry, and to everybody
Shana Tov
else, and to you,
Shana
Elise.
Tova, Henry. Is my
I
hair
hope.
better today, Henry? Um Shana Tova to all those celebrating. I just want to say something that's really bothered me over the years, and I know you're going to have something to say about it. How can you have the UN General Assembly every year during the middle of the holiest days of the Jewish calendar?
Well, you know what the answer to that question is, don't you?
I do. I think it's really unfortunate. And it's made for me, this is like my 30th UNGA. And a lot of times I'm going to synagogue in the morning or going to, when I was at CNN, like I really didn't have a choice. Unless I would take off, which I did sometimes, I was celebrating, but also working. And, I don't do it on Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day of the year. But it's unfortunate that that's just another, thing that Israel can cite as, the UN not, being doesn't really consider Israel as a
Or
fully
Jews,
fledged member or Jews.
or Judaism is a religion worth honoring. Because you can be sure if it was on Eid al-Adha or Eid al-Fitr or during Ramadan, they would bend over backwards. But
They
no.
do they do close during the Muslim holidays, and certainly, the rest of the world closes during the Christian holidays. Although Trump did say today that Christianity is under threat.
Well, all I can say is at the United Nations, Judaism is under threat. Honestly, I have to tell you, I don't think I ever believed that the United Nations was the bastion of anti Semitism that it is, and that the Secretary General and the Secretariat overall were as anti Semitic as they are. Because for them, it's not simply about Israel, and it's not simply about the different standard that they hold Israel to. I don't think I've ever heard the Secretary General mention the Uyghurs. Have you?
No,
Have you ever heard the Secretary General mention the famine in Sudan?
I have.
Really? I haven't. But send me that. Send me that link.
Okay,
And
I will.
but listen,
L-
that's the problem. So anyway, let's talk about Trump. You were talking, I'm sure, about Trump on Jim Acosta. This is going to be a
Yeah,
slightly different
slightly
perspective.
different. I mean, listen, I think, what I was saying before, and maybe I can be considered naive, and I said this to you earlier, and you said, well, this would all be great if President took things seriously. I always start this, UN General Assembly or any kind of big world gathering with President Trump, hoping he's going to rise to the occasion. This is a, opportunity to lay out a U.S. vision. And again, it was like, as you said, I said Gaddafi, you said Castro. You're probably more accurate, but a Castro-like stream of consciousness salad bar wouldn't even be able to
Word
um
salad bar.
word salad bar. I'd love someone to send me a GIF or a graphic of that. But Um, I, I don't. There wasn't, and you wrote. I encourage everybody to look at. Maybe we could send it afterwards in the show notes. A good piece on that the UN could use a Trump-like reckoning. And I said to you that would be great because the United Nations, as we know, needs a lot of reform. And we've been talking about this for years. In his first term, I think Nikki Haley did a fairly good job working with nations behind the scenes. She was very tough on the rhetoric in front of the cameras, but behind the scenes, she was credited for working with nations on budgeting, on, working groups, on all of it. And I traveled with her, and I thought she did a pretty good job as UN
So,
ambassador. But
so
this but this was not a reckoning, Danny. This was like a rant, and not a good Danny-like rant, just a rant that just didn't go anywhere or prescribe anything.
I'm glad that you're distinguishing between the quality of ranting.
Your ranting
Um,
is the best.
Thank you. I often believe that myself,
Yep,
obviously. So first of all, Mike Waltz finally got confirmed
yep,
last week
yep.
after languishing for months, and I think that's really important. I do look. The reality is that even serious presidential addresses before the United Nations are really about showmanship. The job is the UN ambassador. And the UN ambassador needs to work with other countries behind the scenes. And Mike Waltz is a Green Beret. Mike Waltz is a former member of Congress. Mike Waltz served in Afghanistan. He knows how to do this. He's
And he
smart.
can kinda hang out there quietly and get shit done, right?
Well,
Like,
I hope so. But the fact that the president didn't lay out what he was going to do, I think is let's call it unfortunate. But you know what, Elise, your hope that Donald Trump is somehow going to turn into a different person at the age of 79 in his second term has no basis in reality.
yeah,
He's not going to become a different person, and okay. I mean, like him,
okay.
hate him, I don't care.
No,
But
I don't.
let's
Yeah,
talk. But let's talk a little bit about the address. So my colleague Brett Schaefer, who works much more knowledgeably on the United Nations than I do, he and I together had a piece laying out what the president could say. But of course, that would have required that the president didn't get distracted by, squirrels. Honestly,
yeah, yeah,
the
exactly.
squirrels that dart left, right, and
Or the
center in his.
teleprompter or the escalator or any of the numerous things that he saw on his way to the podium.
Indeed. But that being said, few things were good, right? I liked, Iran is not going to get a nuclear weapon.
Okay.
I liked tough sounding on Russia, which we need to talk about afterwards, but
Yep.
let's sort of say tough talk on Russia. I agree with him entirely on the disgraceful question of Palestine. Speaking of what here is our Rosh Hashanah gift to you.
We'll talk about that too in fuller detail too.
Right. So, on foreign policy, he was a little bit less distracted, and then some weird biological weapons thing that honestly I was just like, huh? It was the other stuff where I understand that the president wants to withdraw the United States from the International Organization for Migration, is considering withdrawing the United States from the UNHCR, the High Commission on Refugees, is considering withdrawing the United States from the IPCC, the climate change organization, the unbelievably pernicious climate change organization within the United Nations, and a few others. Dude, okay, talk about that. Tell us why you want to withdraw. Tell us why this isn't worth the money to the
And
United
what they would
States.
need to do for
And
you to
tell us
stay
what
in.
you need to do to fix it. Right.
Mm,
Didn't
mm.
do that. And I guess that's going to be Mike Waltz's job. So what Brett and I wrote about was the things that he could have done and said. And bottom line, just for everybody, spoiler for those of you who don't subscribe to National Review, what we basically said is that the United States needs to have an a la carte relationship with the United Nations. And that means that we need to pay for and be involved in the things that really do have a specific remit, right? Where ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. Right. It's boring. I get it. But they do important work. The ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, these things that have very narrow remit, the United Nations does a necessary job. The Postal Union, I mean, kill me, right? I never thought I would mention the Postal Union in my life, but why not, right? And I get it that the president didn't want to mention that, but those are the things the United States should be willing to pay for. What shouldn't we be willing to pay for? Worthless peacekeeping operations that have been going on for 70 years, or 47 years in the case of UNIFIL, worthless World Health Assemblies that can't prevent or do anything or blame China for a pandemic.
Okay, listen.
You can disagree with me in a
Okay,
sec. Just
no,
wait a
okay.
sec. The Human Rights Commission, which is a bastion of Jew hatred and little else. Those are the things we don't need to be part of. And while I agree that it is important to have a reform agenda, and Brett and I have actually laid out reform agendas for a lot of these organizations, the reality is if you're going to withdraw, for Christ's sakes, say you're going to withdraw
But
and
no,
why.
okay, but fine. Put the money towards programs somewhere else on those things,
Elise,
right?
I don't mind our government spending less money,
Okay. Well, you know what?
especially at the UN.
You know that foreign aid and all that, and how many people have said it, Republican and Democrat, is pennies on the dollar.
We spent
Okay.
more than $18 billion on the United Nations last year. Let me tell
I'm
you,
not saying
I
that.
could find something to do with $18 billion.
Okay, you'll lay it out in the show notes. Let's talk about the Palestinian question. Okay. Now, I've written before. I feel like I want to say you disagree or may disagree, but I feel like the Palestinians deserve a state. I don't feel like now is the time in this whole, you are doing it in response to the Gaza war on October 7th. I feel like the architecture for a Palestinian state needs to be put in place. And that's what nations should be doing. They should be they should be helping the Palestinians develop governance. They should be helping with reconstruction. They should be helping with security. They should get rid of a boss who is a disaster, a corrupt disaster. However, I think that this is a response to people just, you know, they have no recourse to deal with Israel, and this is the way they're doing it. I don't think this is a state. There is no state. It's like throwing a drowning person like a paper plate and saying, like, here's your life preserver. It doesn't do anything for the Palestinians. That's why I think it's like such a colossally bad idea. It's not because I don't think that the Palestinians deserve a state. I just think there were so many more productive ways to help the Palestinians. Reuters was, publicizing this WhatsApp chat with, this mother in Gaza. And she's like, my kids are starving. I have nowhere to go. I'm getting shot at. And you're like celebrating about your recognition. She's like, some actual help would be nice. This recognition means nothing to me and my family. And so I think it's like these are empty gestures. It may be crowd pleasing. It may make people feel good, but Palestinians don't need empty gestures. They need the United Nations and the United States and everybody to get together and help end the war, help bring the hostages home. This is the third year that these poor hostage families are, the third Rosh Hashanah that they're without their families. And I think the war needs to end. You're not going to disintegrate Hamas. The war needs to end.
So I agree with
That's an
almost
Elise
everything
style
you said.
rant.
That was a good rant, though. It was a good and correct rant. I don't think that anybody deserves a state. I think people earn the right to a state and the right to be governed by a government of their own choosing. I'd pick the Kurds for a state before I'd pick the Palestinians for a state. I'd pick Jordan for Palestine before I'd pick Gaza. The problem here is not, and I have always been a sort of a supporter of what is called the two-state solution, but the idea that you can murder the equivalent of 35,000 Americans if it was proportional, and that the consequence would be that you got your own state. Here, Osama bin
Yeah, I
Laden,
just think the
good
relation is
work.
not. Right.
Good work killing all those people in the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. We think you should take over your own state. In fact, maybe you should have New York, because after all, that's where you murdered everybody. And so the government of France apparently recognized yesterday, a quote unquote state of Palestine, and then they changed the address of their embassy, of their consulate in Jerusalem, to Jerusalem, Palestine. So not only have they recognized it, but they've given Jerusalem to the Palestinians. Let me just say that there are very few Israelis who are going to be down with that. But what I think you said that was the most important thing here is that all these people who pretend to give a shit about the Palestinians do not. Because we have spent the last 33 years since the Oslo Accords pouring money at, there are innumerable intervals over the last 33 years in which the per capita assistance to the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza was the largest in the world. That money was all stolen by the leadership of Hamas, Arafat, Abu Mazen, all of their bagmen, and all of their cronies. And we have watched as the Palestinian economy has declined, not because of the evil Jews, but because the people who can work, the people who can do anything, the managerial class of the Palestinian people that existed for decades prior to that, decamped from these hellholes of terrorism and corruption.
And left.
That's right. That's part one. Part two, all of the last 33 years that we had the quartet, that we had the aid programs, that we had the special envoys, that we had all of the European Union crapping all over itself to help Palestine, what have they delivered to the Palestinian people? Terrorism, kleptocracy, death. Hamas on Monday shot to death 3 quote unquote collaborators on film in the street. I put it at the top of my Substack on the question of the state of Palestine on Monday. Have a look at it if you want to see
Hi, Veronique.
what the
Veronique
hell
just
is.
joined.
Hey, Veronique, uh, look at it on what the hell is going on, because nobody actually cares about those people. Not pathetic Anthony Albanese from Australia, not Macron, not the head of Islamic Jihad, Keir Starmer, and not pathetic Mark Carney in the country that has now become unwelcome to Jews as well, Canada. None of these people actually care about the Palestinians. And the analogy that I gave, and now I'm on my rant, is apartheid. This is exactly like that fight. Nobody gave a shit about South Africa as long as it wasn't whites in government. Did they care about the well-being of South Africa's Black people? Did they care about the well-being of South Africa's brown people? Did they care about the economy, the honesty of the government, the crime rate? Nothing, right? South Africa is one of the most dangerous places in
Yeah,
the
and I mean,
world,
look,
world today, but you don't hear a peep because no one cares, because this is nothing other than global virtue signaling with a really heavy taste of anti-Semitism, just, for the kids in the cheap seats.
well, and I mean, the thing that, I just go back to the whole idea of governance, right? Like Salam
Boring.
Fayyad, yeah, but it's the truth,
No,
you
no,
know?
it's too boring for. But Elise, why are you so serious? We don't care about governance. We want a state for the Palestinian people.
Yeah, but I mean, look, you know, the Palestinians haven't been able to choose their government in 17 years, you know? And
And
the
they did an
fact that
awesome job choosing
and the
when they were
fact that
able
they're
to.
saying that because there's no alternative, the PA Palestinian Authority led by Abbas should be the
Who's
governing
90?
authority,
Who's 90?
why don't you start developing, young Palestinians and start putting the building blocks? And that's what Salam Fayyad tried to do. But that was
And then he ran for
that was not,
office.
and he
And
didn't
then,
win.
and what
That
percentage
wasn't
did he get?
I don't know, like half of a percent. This is not,
2.3.
this is not sexy enough. And so the Palestinians, have a flag and have an anthem, but they're not going to have the architecture of a state until they have governance. And they're not going to have a state because Israel will, made clear that they're opposed to this. I think like what I've always tried to tell the Palestinians is like call the Israelis bluff. Like they say that they want to, negotiate with a peace partner, whatever. Show them that have what it takes, and call their bluff, and then you'll have. But
But they don't
anyway,
want a state. They don't want a state.
come
They
on,
want to
Dany,
destroy.
stop it.
They want to destroy the Jewish state. That
I
is the
think
ultimate
I
aim of the
think not every
Palestinians.
Palestinian wants to destroy the Jewish state, and I think there are plenty of
But is
Palestinians
the
that are.
fact that there are enough that do and that they are in government important?
No, I don't think there are any in government that don't want to, have peace with Israel. I don't think there are any good Palestinian officials in government right now. But I think that there are a lot of young Palestinians kind of that could rise to the level of a responsible government. But nobody wants to, our friend Ege Salamari worked on this. Like, there's just not enough. Um, yes, Mandy Patemkin is the most Jewish person I know, and he's against what Israel is doing. Look,
I'm
no
sorry.
one
Do
likes
not
what's.
pick my best friends or some of my best friends are Jews and they're against Israel. Come on,
Yeah. Well,
that's
what
weak.
all I'm saying is, there are plenty of Jews that don't like what Israel is doing, but there are plenty of Jews that didn't like what happened on October 7th. So I just think it's, you know, at the end of the day, this isn't going to, help the Palestinians. It's not going to bring home the hostages. And let's move on to Russia.
So let's tell everybody, because I'm willing to bet that with all the news today, people weren't paying attention. Now, I have to go, I have to turn this off in order to be able to read it, but I think it's really worth reading. Can you still hear me,
Is
Elise?
this the
Yeah. Can
Trump
you?
social? Yeah,
Yeah. So,
I can
folks,
hear you.
listen.
Listen.
Listen to this. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it's causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win, all caps, all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. Real military power in caps. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all of the great cities, towns, and districts and all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war, the fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines that are being formed, and all the other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of their money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit, all caps, and only getting better, Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form and, who knows, maybe even go further than that. Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do with what they want with them. Good luck to all. I mean, I sent that to you, Elise.
And what did I say?
What
What did
did
I
you
say?
say? What'd
I
you say?
said I love it if he doesn't change his mind tomorrow.
That's exactly right. But that was Donald Trump on Truth Social. I mean, I agree. And I was like, where did this come from? I think all of us are asking, where did this come from? He met with Zelensky, and all I can see is he has made a 180. Now, you're exactly right. The problem with Donald Trump isn't that he'll make a 180 again. It's that he'll keep changing the conditions, right? Oh, I'll do it when you do it. Oh, I'll
Yeah,
do it when
yeah.
you do it better.
Hi, David.
And so, one of the things that I completely agree about is it's very hard to get support for from a country that keeps changing its mind about how it wants to support
And
you.
if he says to NATO, okay, shoot down, Russian drones or whatever, the NATO countries are thinking, okay, now he said to shoot down the drone. Is he going to support me tomorrow after I shoot down the drone? Or is he going to be siding with Russia that I attacked Russia? And so, we're just not a reliable ally
No,
at this point
no, I
on
agree.
Russia. And
I
I mean,
agree that
look,
we're not.
you guys should read. Danny's been writing a lot about Ukraine and how the U.S. and NATO should be helping Ukraine. And I encourage you to subscribe to What the Hell is Going On, because a lot of good stuff on Ukraine and other things.
Thank you. And you
But
had a great piece on this too. Listen, what we need is to have a policy, not 20 policies, not a changing policy. And what we need, and the president has finally figured out, I think correctly, that the deal that the Biden administration cut with the Russians to have an oil price cap is nothing other than tacit support for Russia. That's why. Where is the president going to have trouble? Who are the main consumers of Russian oil at this point? Slovakia, Hungary. Who's the leader of Hungary? And Turkey. The Indians and the Chinese are also buying a lot. So inside the European Union, he's going to have to either sanction the Hungarians. Inside NATO, he's going to have to sanction the Turks, or they're going to have to change this deal overall. And that's what they need to do. What we need to do is resupply all of the Russia's purchasers with sustainable natural gas, sustainable oil from the Middle East, from wherever, and or from the United States, and in that way cut off the Russians. They should no longer be allowed to sell oil. Trump has cottoned on to this. The Europeans still don't want to cut themselves off, right? Because what do you remember the Woody Allen thing that I love, Elise? I always
no.
quote it. Inevitably, it's old. Before he was a total pervert, Woody Allen, and where man goes to a doctor and he says, "Doctor, doctor, my brother-in-law thinks he's a chicken. We don't know what to do." And the doctor goes, "Well, you need to bring him to see me. He needs a psychiatrist. He needs some support." And the guy goes, "Well, we would do that, but we need the eggs." And this is
Right.
unfortunately the position of the European Union. We would love to cut off the Russians. We would love to be tougher on Putin. We're very worried about Putin, but we still need the oil and gas. Sorry.
I just think I think Donald Trump needs to pick a side. One minute he's on, wants to preserve his relationship with Russia. And I won't say he's on Putin's side, but he wants to maintain that good relationship with Russia. And then the other, he's, Russia bad, doesn't want peace. So I think he needs to pick a side and stick with a side. We think it should be with the Ukrainian side. He met with Zelensky today. Have you kind of heard anything about how
I
that
think they
meeting
had a
went?
good I haven't heard too much backstory, but I think they had a good meeting.
I
I
mean,
think
we've talked about this before. I
he
think
likes he likes Zelensky.
begrudgingly likes Zelensky. You know what I mean?
It's not grudging at all. He really liked Zelensky, and unfortunately, they had that Oval Office debacle, which we don't need to rehash. But and that changed everything. But I think that been a real rapprochement and a real clear understanding that Putin's been lying to him. And look, I've said this before on Hot Takes, and I've said it on our podcast, and I've said it on the Substack, and I've said it on NBC. I've said it everywhere. Donald Trump likes to go into a meeting being nice to both sides. That's his businessman approach. I'm fine with that as long as you're not lying to yourself. I don't mind that you're lying to Vladimir Putin. You seem like a great guy. Go ahead. If you want to tell Vlad he's a great guy, but
If you think he's a great guy, then
you
you
should
know
not be fooled into thinking he is one. And this is where Trump has really gone back and forth and forth and back. And I will say, part of the problem is there are a lot of people in this administration who think that they are better representatives of the MAGA movement than Donald Trump. Bridge Colby at the Department of Defense thinks he is a better spokesman for the isolationist, retrenched right. Right? Pete Hegseth thinks he's a better decision maker on national security issues than Donald Trump. And that's not correct. The president gets to be the president for good, as we know, and for ill. And those people need to be dealt with inside the administration because they are the source of Donald Trump's problems at this point. When he goes back and forth and forth and back, part of that is that he has a very, very divided staff that is not loyal to him.
that's. I mean, that's a good point. But why does he hold on to these? Why is he holding on to Hegseth? Why is he holding on to RFK? Why is he holding on to people that are undermining, what he says he wants? And to be
Elise,
quite honest,
if I
I
knew
don't.
the answer to that, I wouldn't be here on Hot Takes Happy Hour with you. I would be the Oracle of Delphi.
I don't. I honestly don't think half these things like he has certain things that are important to him. The rest, I think, they're these like vultures are kind of circling around trying to get their crazy policies through. I wanna we have a minute or 2 left. I wanna ask you what you thought about the tone of his speech today when he's like, "All your countries are going to hell." And, I mean, I understand this is, like, Trumpian rhetoric, but, it just it was I didn't like it.
Look, I was on, with the snotty, Channel 4, in the UK earlier
"Ooh,
today.
okay. Hmm."
Doesn't Donald Trump realize that he's telling people lies? I mean, does he not know where he is? And I was like, dude, when you're an American citizen, you can vote in the election and you can let him know what you think of him. But right now, you're still a reporter. And the bottom line is Donald Trump, for good and for ill, has figured out that his constituency is not in the United Nations General Assembly. His constituency is in the United States. And it doesn't matter where he is, London, Paris,
Yeah, he's not
Moscow.
running for
Wait, let me
reelection
finish.
anymore,
Let me,
Danny, and he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think that's gonna get him the Nobel Peace Prize. Maybe they'll
Elise,
get it to him because 'cause they're fucking
Elise,
scared of him. I don't know.
Elise.
Danny.
I'm telling you why he gave the speech he gave. That's who he is, okay? And the idea that we are still sort of surprised that he is going to I mean, look, I wasn't a huge fan. I don't think you should talk for 55 minutes. That's his longest speech yet. I don't think you should tell countries that, they're shitholes, even if even if they
You
are.
wanna say even if they are.
UK, France. Right. I don't think you should do that. I'm not the president, so I can say it. But I don't think you should do it. But I also am not. I'm not a Trump person. Okay, this guy has gone from the presidency to the presidency, and he likes to speak to America, and he's going to speak to America wherever he is. And, we can all disagree. We can all say this is a missed opportunity. We can all say that he should have done it this way. And we will all be right insofar as we are, as what I called myself on Channel 4, bougie think tank woman from Washington, right? But that's who we are. He gets to decide who he is. He lives with the consequences. That's the way it is. I would have liked a better speech. I would have liked a more serious speech. He didn't ask me.
There you have it, folks.
And I'm betting he didn't ask you either, baby.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he did. He didn't listen.
He called.
If he only he listens. If only
Elise,
he listens.
sweetheart, I love your hair today, he said. You look so good. Anyway, thanks everybody
Thanks
for joining
everyone for
us.
watching.
Usually
We'll
we're
send out
together.
the Thursdays at 5:30, where we talk about a plenty of issues. We will be back on Thursday. Thanks everyone for joining us. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Cosmopolitics and What the Hell is Going On Substack.
We're gonna be checking up on you. Thanks,
All right.
everybody. Bye,
Thanks
Elise.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.